Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Zoom into Wine. It's time for the show and your host, Ian Blackburn.
I really appreciate you making time for us. I know you're got some amazing things happening, so let's get right into it and talk about this incredible project, this beautiful brand that you've created in Patagonia, Argentina. How did you decide Patagonia was where you wanted to go?
But I think that it was almost a fluke. I decided earlier on that I wanted to venture on my own and establish my own domain. I've always had a fondness for Pinot, so I did a crush in Oregon at DDO. The Drouin were very gracious to have me. And at the same time, I explored California, where I lived for over 10 years, as well as Burgundy. And Burgundy, I realized, was going to be a very difficult road ahead because very few things come up for sale. And when they do, they're typically traded in-house, meaning within the local community. And more often than not, you're not buying acreage, you're buying rows. So it's a waiting game and you need to be very well financed. And the element of unknown was too large for an impatient young Italian like I was at the time. My heart was maybe set on California because I spent a lot of time there, and California, I'm forever grateful to that state. After attending the Wine Spectator in 2001 on behalf of my family vineyard, I drank wine blind at dinner that night, which came from this valley in Rio Negro, Argentina. And we all felt that the wine was from Burgundy. In reality, when they uncovered the bottle, the wine was from Argentina. The wine per se was not incredible, but it had some very interesting characteristics that were both varietal and surprising. So being young and maybe not particularly smart, I hopped on a plane without speaking the language nor know exactly where I was going. And I landed in this valley in Rio Negro, which it's astounding because from the air, nothing gives the impression that this is a wine region for Pinot because you're more in a desert than anything else. But sure enough, I quickly learned that the genetic material had been there for the longest time. And so it turns out that these families of Pinot Noir adapted itself to the microclimate. You can see it on the slide right now, and they were thriving. And so that's how we got there. And we found a place with incredible genetic material. All the vineyards at Chacra are pre-Philospora. So we have everything is on its own rootstock. We have no clones. And everything is massal selection, meaning as opposed to having the replication of the same plant, these are families of plants or villages, as we can also call them. So for us, it's an incredible luxury to have access to this genetic material that, as you know, it's very rare in the world. And we managed to, after 20 years of hard work and a very committed team, we brought it back to life. And now we feel very privileged to have this.
Yeah, the genetic material being so aged and never ever has it been anything but sustainable or organic. It's always been farmed that way, right?
It's a long conversation. I know we're pressed for time, but basically we're in a microclimate that is absolutely outstanding and astounding, in the sense that we're used in Europe in dealing with a lot of disease and pests, such as Pronospora, Philospora, Tignola, or Oidium. Once you get to this valley, the humidity hovers between, let's say, 25% to 40%. So there is no pest, there is no disease, there is no Philospora, there is no Pronospora, there is no Oidium. And so we are living in a place that is completely free of any diseases that a vineyard can catch. So, of course, the vineyards were already organic because they were semi-abandoned. And the people that farmed them did not have enough resources to treat them chemically, luckily for us. Therefore, we immediately applied for the certification. Chacra has never been a non-organic or a non-biodynamic. So since inception, we've always farmed the very same way. And it's incredibly easy for us. You see some of these images to be able to pursue this farming practices with without any challenges. The biggest challenge we have is hail and frost, and we're equipped for that. So we have a great team that really is devoting their life to, like taking care of this vineyard. So we're very privileged.
Mm. And you have some folks that would they be indigenous folks helping you in on the property?
Yeah, so Chacra is a little bit, we've been remote working since inception because when I started the vineyard, I also had to sell the wine. And I spend more or less 6 to 7 months a year in the estate. And there is a great team that is composed by Italians, but also Argentines and also some Peruvians. So it's really more than one culture, more than one nationality coming together. But it works great. We have the same goal. That's our shared interest. So we're very privileged that way.
That's beautiful. Is it a good place for people to put on their calendar to visit?
But it depends what kind of a person you are. If you are a person that is fine to spend some alone time in a very quiet place without restaurants or nightclubs or high-end hotels, yes. Chacra is beautiful, is uncontaminated. It's not just a winery, it's a farm. We don't believe in monoculture, so we do all sorts of cultivation to increase, enhance, and preserve our biodiversity. So if you're okay then being alone and read a book, maybe play some tennis and have a lot of food and drink a lot of wine, absolutely yes.
That doesn't sound too bad to me. Yeah, so again, always been and always have been organic, biodynamic, and you've had some amazing progress. So you bought the location in around 2002, 2003?
Yeah, we bought a location. I mean, I acquired it without payment on a handshake in 2002. This was a very old gentleman, Italian gentleman from northern Italy. And I purchased the vineyard 1.5 years after the handshake. We took possession of the property. We did the first 2 vintages in my cousin's vineyard. And then we built a winery. We bought the electricity, water, and built a team around it. Again, it was a collection of abandoned vineyards. So we had nothing. We started from scratch. We had to build an organization. We had to build the organic and biodynamic program. So it's a little bit of an incredible luxury to be able to arrive somewhere and be having access to some very old genetic material and pristine old vineyards without having tradition. This allows you to get rid of what I call the golden handcuffs of inheriting an estate, in the sense that you're inheriting an estate, but you're also inheriting somebody else's tradition that you might not be in complete agreement with. Mm-hmm. So arriving in Patagonia, we had this very old genetic material, but no tradition. So Chacra is a little bit like a research and development winery. We dedicate a large portion of our resources and time to completely experiment. We're making wines that are free of chemicals and free of sulfur. Most of the time we don't filter the wines. So when you're making this wine in this fashion, the wine are practically naked. And therefore we have to be much more precise, much more quick. We have to be extremely clean. And there is no room for mistake because we do micro fermentation. We make single vineyard wines, so our productions are very small. And the minimum mistake on a wine vat can generate tremendous damages. So this pushes to constantly improve our efficiency, the time of the intervention, and also it tests us as humans, because when you're not working in collaboration with science and chemistry to make your wine, because we don't use chemicals, you have to be far more conscious of your actions, precise, and there is a whole set of new protocols that have to be so much stricter if you want to deliver wine that are clean, transparent, mineral, floral, and energetic, which is what we're trying to do. Luckily, our soil composition has elements such as pebbles, what French people call grave, which is a stone that is typical of riverbed. We have clay, and we have sand, and we have a lot of calcareous matter that wraps around these pebbles. So our our mineral composition has all the elements that allow us to make the style of wine that we're making. We just have to make sure that the subterranean soils are not compacted so that the root system have access to this food and these minerals and this different type of materials that will in turn synthesize and relate to the bunches. So we have to be precise, because I don't like breadth, I don't like volatility, I don't like mouths, I don't like extreme reduction in the reds. And this takes an obsessive kind of approach to farming. Once your farming job is done, you just have to try not to mess it up in the vineyard. The idea is to gain flavor in your grapes. So all of these practices, maybe it's going to sound a little bit selfish and egotistical, we are following first and foremost because they give us better quality of grapes. That grapes are far more tasty and they have far more energy because there is no chemical element in them. So there is a sort of eclat, of an electricity to these wines. I always say that we like to make red wines that taste a little bit more like white wines, in the sense that I like red wines that are low in alcohol, that are fresh, they have a strong acidity or energy, however we want to describe that. And most and foremost, they're also food friendly and can be drank like glue wine. So something that truly gives you a great pleasure, as opposed to having wine that are very concentrated or extracted, or they have a high alcohol component. And I hope that we are succeeding in that. You know, nothing is added to our wine, is spontaneous fermentation with indigenous yeast, and then 3 weeks of maceration, and here they are. Sorry, my 2-year-old just walked in, so it might be a little loud for 2 minutes.
Here comes the boss. All right.
Yeah, here comes the boss.
Well, we appreciate your time here, and but it's always fascinating to connect with you. I was surprised to hear you actually were raised in Switzerland.
Yes.
Yeah.
I went to boarding schools in Switzerland when I was 12 years old. I did my whole, my son brought me a rose.
Look at that.
Hi. You want to say hi?
Yeah.
You want to say hi? Say hi, Ian.
Hi.
Hello. What's your name? What's your name?
What's your name?
Right now. Well,
You brought me a rose.
That's so nice. That's so beautiful.
Yes.
So you went to boarding school in Switzerland.
I went to boarding school in Switzerland. I pursued a French education. I received my baccalaureate. Then immediately I was compelled to get myself a job to acquire financial freedom from my family. It was very important to me. I worked for a Swiss bank for 1.5 years. I immediately realized that I was far more attracted to a vineyard than a bank. My dad insisted I went to university, so I went to California. I went to Pepperdine University in Malibu. I spent some 10 years in California doing all sorts of things. And then I came back to Italy. I worked for my family for a couple of years. And then I spent some 15 years representing my family business in some foreign markets. And that's when I decided to start my own winery.
That's beautiful. Well, you're having some tremendous success. Comments like wine of the year, 100-point scores. I saw you carry a couple of the white wines, which you have a partner, Jean-Marc Rouleau, which is tremendous. And you're making the Pinot Noirs, and you've got a number of Pinot Noirs as well, right, Piero?
Yeah, so our range starts with Barda, which means the ridge. It's a fantastic wine, in my opinion, because the average vineyard that produces the grapes for Barda is 25 years old. As you know, most of the crew are made from vineyards that are 20 plus years old. So to have for the lack of a better word, an entry-level wine from vineyards that are so old, that is organic and biodynamic, and all vineyards are ungrafted, it's a luxury. I don't know many other people that have this genetic material. And so I think we are providing a wine that is very fresh, very clean. It's meant to be drank young, and it's got a lot of very clean fruit, and is also very floral. Then we have some single vineyard wines, of which the vineyards were planted in 1955 and in 1932. Besides the age of the vineyard, they also have different mineral composition that determine, of course, the characteristics of the wine. We treat all grapes and all wines the same way. We ferment everything the same way. We make wine with full bunches, with no chemical interventions, no tartaric acid, no added tannins, absolutely nothing. Of course, then you spoke about the whites. It's a very exciting, at the same time humbling process for us. A very dear friend of mine, who is a Burgundian vigneron from Rousseau, proposed that
one of the great families in Meursault as well.
Yes, but not just the same families by production. Sì, amore, posso finire? I need to finish here, my love. Yeah. It's not just because of their very iconic and famous. We did this together primarily because Jean-Marc is an outstanding human. It's the person that everybody wished it was their older brother. He's a gentle soul, is the consummate professional, and he is a maverick winemaker with very committed, serious practices. And Jean-Marc and we are partners in the Chardonnay venture, so he's not a consultant. They come and go and they don't make the wine. Jean-Marc is the real deal. He comes to Burgundy. Maybe that was a Freudian slip. This is my desire to go to Burgundy.
I get it. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I got my shadow head in the background.
So he comes to Patagonia and he makes the wine, and then he leaves and he oversees the wine, and then he comes back during the year. And a little bit of a fun fact this year, for the second time in the history of Chacra, the blend for the white wines was made by Jean-Marc, Gabriele, and myself here in Bulgaria. So a Frenchman comes to Italy, and with two Italian men, they're making the blend of a Chardonnay that is made in Patagonia. And so it's kind of like a sign of times, you know?
Beautiful. Great chemistry, great energy, as you say. And I really appreciate your time. Please
thank you.
Thank your son for bringing energy to our Zoom.
And roses.
Make sure you smell the roses. All
yeah.
Right.
Ian, before we leave, because you touched on it, but maybe out of sometime insecurities, I haven't mentioned it. Of course, we're forever grateful to James Suckling, but also to Luis Gutierrez, which James represents itself. Luis, of course, works for Parker, because they've always been incredibly encouraging. And I must tell you that to go and make Pinot in Patagonia, Argentina, it's probably the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life. In hindsight, knowing then what I know today, I don't know if I would have done it. Thank God I was very young and I had a ton of energy, but I'm forever grateful for these critics that judged us based on quality and not on a geographical place like Europe, and had the courage to award, I think for the first time, 100 points and then wine of the year to a wine that is organic and biodynamic. So hopefully other people will be inspired by what we do, and we will diminish the chemical print that we inject in our soils year after year.
Wow.
So thank you for everyone.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And we all appreciate your effort. And we hope
it's a teamwork. Remember, I'm just one small part of the team. And I mean that.
You're putting together a beautiful team and a beautiful message. So we'll celebrate that. And thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much. I hope to see you soon.
You too, Piero. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good one. Bye.
You too.